We're live and we are streaming and recording. After a false start there, we are live.
Are we actually live this time?
Yes, we are recording and live.
Oh, it's live on the NAA.
It's live.
Oh,
we got the link posted. And so thank you to everyone. Despite our technical hiccups, we have got our fireside chat initiated with Mr. Merrick Lackner, CEO of Rentley, the company that powers, I think 14 million. I think we lost count, but 14 million self-guided tours and growing for over 3,000 operators. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're quite busy. Apologies, we had some technical issues at the beginning, but really happy to have you here.
I'm happy that NAA is going to be able to view the session. I thought we were going to have to go to a pre-recorded one, but it's great that you're able to get us back in live. So
we're back in live.
Thank you, Andre. That's why you're COO. You solve these problems when they come up.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I'm Andre. I'm the CEO here, as you all know. Merrick, you're the founding father, along with Clark Lee of Rentley. And so really appreciate you. For anyone that's visiting our booth, you can win at PS5. So make sure you submit your chance to win. So want to invite you to this fireside chat. Really happy to kind of talk to you about Rentley, self-guided tours, how it's evolved since its founding, how we're tackling the apartment sector now, the multifamily sector. And so kind of, by the way, Merrick hasn't seen these questions. So this is kind of a rapid fire for him. And when we were talking about structuring this talk, I was thinking, okay, well, what better way than to start at the beginning, right? So Rentley's been around for 9 years now.
9 years.
And so I know I've heard this story, but I don't know how many of our listeners have heard this story. So kind of a wild idea.
Sure.
How did you and Clark birth the idea for Rentley?
Yeah, so we actually started the company 9 years ago. Clark and I met through the UC Berkeley Alumni Network when we both had finished school, graduated, we were in LA. I was LinkedIn hopping for potential partners. I wanted to start a business. I wasn't sure exactly what in totality, but I knew I'd need a technical founder to do anything sophisticated. And I called Mr. Clark Lee. He's a genius. He had previously, worked as a software development manager, managed a large team in healthcare. Met up with him, and I had this idea, for a finance-related site back in 2011. This is, right after the Great Recession, so the housing market had taken a hit, and Clark said, I don't like that ecosystem. That doesn't make any sense, Merrick. I'm not doing this with you. Yeah. But I met him for coffee, and he was listening. So I said, oh, well, you're saying there's a chance, right? So I called him back for a second meeting. I said, sure. I got another idea here. It's a renter's market, but it's so difficult for renters, even now, to find the rental that they want to move into. I mean, at the time, I was a renter as well, even though the renter had more leverage.
Sure.
So the original idea was, okay, let's create a platform where if you're moving from, say, Los Angeles to San Francisco, I could say, I'm Merrick, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom in San Francisco, or a 1-bedroom. In our case, it was a 1-bedroom when I went to UC Berkeley, my wife and my daughter, the 3 of us. And then the landlord or manager could essentially have a dialogue or bid to have you move into their place. And we actually invested the initial money that Clark and I both put into the company, and this idea totally bombed. I mean, it was fun. It was fun while we were building it out. I got to live in fantasy land, dream of all the riches. Sure. Clark was probably working really hard, going, I hope this thing works.
So it sort of flipped the script. It was managers could bid on a renter, which really changed the dynamic of how a person would find a property.
Exactly, you got it. And I mention it because it's an important lesson that has really stuck with us through to this day. But before I get to that, Clark, we launched this. I'm driving around town. I'm calling every sign that I see to try to get landlords to use this rental request site. And about a month passes, and we're not seeing any momentum. And Clark calls me and goes, my wife says I was doing pretty well before I started this company with you. I think I should go back to being an engineer. And I say, just hold up, Clark. And I go, holy smokes, we got to get onto something real soon. the reason I mentioned the rental request platform is it taught us an important lesson that when you're doing business, it's important to look for processes that can be radically improved rather than trying to affect massive behavioral change.
Right.
So what we were trying to do with the rental request system was change the entire process and the behaviors in the industry. And that's just not how it works. If you're a renter looking for a place, you apply, the manager reviews your qualifications, and if you're a fit, you can place. And if not, you can look for other properties. So, you know, Clark having called me saying, okay, I think I should go back to being an engineer, it was game time. And when the pressure's on, the pressure's on. And in that time, in that moment, you know, summer of, I think it was 2011 now, we came up with the idea. Wait a second, we don't need to affect massive behavioral change to allow a renter to expeditiously, smoothly, easily, comfortably go in and see a rental property.
Right.
And, you know, when I went to UC Berkeley, I had to drive up north. You know, I didn't fly. I was trying to save money as a student.
Sure.
Drive up north to see 3 properties held by two landlords it was. And one landlord had 2 properties, the other had 1. I couldn't see anything else driving around, even though there were 4 rent sites, again, a renter's market in 2011. So it was difficult for me to find a place to rent. I experienced the problem. Once we had this idea of letting somebody register with their name, phone number, and in the early days, we didn't even have a credit card. Credit card was later added because the technology was used to lease out my parents. My dad inherited his mom's home that's in Laguna Beach.
Sure.
The one element I said, well, what would I want in the process to feel secure with my own family's unit on the system? I said, well, if there's a credit card on file, that's just like the vacation rental industry. Then I'll go ahead and put it live. So we did put it live. I was fishing on a Sunday off the sand, which I like to do every now and then, and somebody viewed the property and saw it. I didn't even talk to them. And
while you're fishing?
While I was fishing, and that tenant has been with my parents, I think, for the last 9 years.
By the way, I've heard that
they're
story.
not very good landlords because they don't do rent increases. I mean, it's just inherited home. They don't, but they are, you know, a good paying tenant that's been there for years. You know, thank God. So it worked for the family.
I've never heard that. By the way, I've heard this story many times. I don't think I've ever heard the detail of you being fishing.
I was
while the property was getting toured.
I was. Yep.
That's really cool. Actually, funny parallel. One of the reasons that attracted me to Rently was very similar. I actually experienced the Rently pain point firsthand.
Yeah.
When I was touring, I think something like 18 properties in Pasadena.
Yeah.
I could only see a handful. And it was literally the week before I interviewed at Rently.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of this aha moment where I was like, oh, this is actually solving a really big problem that I just recently
you had to have
encountered.
believed in it, especially with the picnic tables. Otherwise, your wife, she's a doctor. She never would have let you join, right? So,
hey, it was a great idea.
Tell everybody about the picnic tables. I mean, I'm talking here. Why don't you share your experience walking into the picnic tables?
Yeah, that was funny because we had lived, for any of you that are familiar with LA, it's huge. It's a huge city. And at that time, me and my wife, like I mentioned, had moved to Pasadena. And you know, we were trying to find a place to live. And at the same time, I was trying to find, you know, a new job. And I literally, I remember my wife was like, you're going to commute how long for this job? And I was like, well, it's an interview, you know, it was like an hour and a half away. And I walked in and, you know, you guys had the mid-rise. It was a building, but it was like, it was a high rise, but it wasn't the prettiest high rise.
Concrete.
It was concrete. But, and I walk in and I met you and Penny. And I met the sales crew, and I walked in and I saw picnic tables. But you know what really sold me?
They were beautiful.
The way they were literally Costco picnic tables. Okay, like a Costco picnic table.
We were making calls on our picnic table.
Making calls on the picnic table. But I don't know why it was so endearing to see. The thing that kind of sold it was the people were great, right? It wasn't like a Sharpie sales environment. Everyone was helping each other.
Yeah.
But then number 2, the product was great. I just experienced the pain point. But then number 3, the fact that you as the CEO were also sitting on a picnic table making calls was like, dude, the guy absolutely believes in this. Why wouldn't I give it a shot?
Yeah.
And and then here we are 5.5 years later in front of a virtual fireplace. Yeah. A fireplace job.
Yeah, I mean, those were the days, but you know, we were very blessed, thank God, to just expand and get all of the major single family institutions within 18 months. I mean, if you go back and look at the history, we didn't anticipate. I mean, to be honest, we did not anticipate that there was going to be this industry of REITs going out in, essentially purchasing tens of thousands of homes, which they had a huge logistical challenge. You know, how do we lease these properties? Do we hire in-house staff? Do we use commission realtors? I mean, it was a big challenge. And again, we didn't know when we came up with the idea that this was going to be as big as it, ended up becoming. But we were very fortunate because getting the larger companies first, allowed us as a bootstrap company to essentially go ahead and use, that business, those business wins essentially to go out and get the SMB market, those managers that might have 100, several hundred, and, upper side of the S&P thousands. So, it was great. It was a great initial, journey with a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah. You mentioned something interesting, and obviously, this audience is very multifamily focused. So that's something I kind of wanted to talk about is traditionally Rentley had expanded in the single family space. And then probably within the last 3 years, we started expanding into multifamily with really two products, right? Smart home as an amenity was sort of the first dive in. But now very recently too, a huge surge in business with regards to, the self-guided tours, right? We used to call self-showing, and the nomenclature on attendant showing that we use now, self-guided tours is sort of the multi-family nomenclature. Tell me about how, it's kind of a two-part question, self-guided tours from single family to multifamily. Rapid growth, what do you attribute it to, right? Obviously, we've heard the COVID story, but what do you attribute the rapid growth of multifamily self-showing? But then also, how have you seen the product evolve, right? Because it's not as simple, we know, as taking something that works in single family and slapping it into multifamily, right? It's a much different thing. And I want you to talk a little bit about that transition from single family to multifamily.
So it's interesting. I mean, if you look at the single family space, institutionally controlled homes, there's about 300,000 to 400,000. The industry expects that number to grow to 5, 6, 700,000 in the next year or two. But the multifamily industry just eclipses that by huge numbers. I mean, you're talking about 10 million institutionally controlled multifamily units, housing units. And that's not to mention the units outside of, the institutionally controlled ones. And, I'm talking about, the top 50 NMHC, NAA type communities, the Gray Stars, the Lincolns, the Pinnacles of the world. So we've long known that we wanted to get into the multifamily industry. We thought it was a big opportunity. But one of the reasons why multifamily initially was a little bit slower to adopt the technology was a lot of these communities do have on-site managers, right? So the product wasn't just a direct, copy paste from single family to multifamily. It was something that we had to do a lot of research, a lot of development. We have, Scrum teams that are just focused on a multifamily exclusive solution. This is not a just copy and paste of what we do for a single family. It's targeted to be best in class for the multifamily industry. So it took a lot of time to develop, and all the various variables are factored into that development. So the interplay between the on-site staff manager, the fact that the on-site manager may be there some of the time, but may not be there during the weekend. So the whole process and flow supports the uniqueness of multifamily. And, in terms of options, a lot more options have developed since, we started the self-showing technology. And, obviously many people still use a digital lockbox to let prospective tenants into their property. And that's a great low-cost solution that could still be used by multifamily operators today. And in fact, it's seeing great adoption in the industry. But another dynamic that's changed since, since COVID is the fact that we manufacture locks. We also have smart home systems. So we have a whole platform with tiered offerings. If you're looking as an operator to just OpEx and go lower cost, we've got the self-showing software that you could focus on. But one of the big talks of the, the industry has been the move towards more progressively advanced hardware technologies, locks and smart home systems. And we have that as well. Of course, they're more expensive. So the whole thing is kind of fusing together and creating a great enthusiasm within the multifamily industry. And, you know, reasons for it, you know, beyond COVID include the advancement of hardware, and also the fact that now the software is, after years of development, catered for the multifamily industry as well. Yeah. So I would say those two factors, in addition to COVID, all meshed together to create a, you know, again, enthusiasm with the industry, where I tell people all the time, there's no way that we're going to look back in 2 years and say in the multifamily space that this is or was a fad that didn't become a reality. I mean, self-showing is going to continue to go up in its usage. We're going from early adoption to full adoption, and we're going to continue to see smart home technologies roll out. So it's a really exciting time. Yeah, no, those are great points. I think to distill it down, there's 3 big evolutions, right? It's the prospect journey is totally different. Yeah. The access control is totally different from a home. And then also too, a third thing is integrations, right? A customer in the single family world that's using a property where probably not using that in multifamily, right? So making sure that the platform integrates and carries not just lead information, but property information back and forth is something that we always look at. You know, self-guided tours, right? That's the nomenclature that multifamily has landed on, right? I know it's been talked about increasingly really in the last, you know, I would say year. We've seen more and more talks about it. You know, I was asking before our chat, you know, questions that people could toss us. A really great question that came in. What should a vendor look for? You know, now there's so many fully autonomous, somewhat autonomous, self-guided tour solutions out there. Outside of Rently, you know, there's a lot of self-guided tour systems that, or, you know, claiming to be self-guided tours. What should someone who's a multifamily operator looking at self-guided tour technology, like what, in your opinion, as someone who's built and scaled this over 9 years, what should they be looking for, evaluating? How should they evaluate it? So, you know, it's a great question. And somebody who's a multifamily operator, honestly, the honest answer is you should evaluate the technology based on the pain points that you have in your business. Every business has different pain points. You know, we all have challenges as businesses that we need to review. And so, you know, and also in terms of, you know, deployment cost, that's also a very important one. You know, there are players in the industry, and what's so, you know, unique about Rently is that we can really come and take a consultative approach to understanding your business as a multifamily operator or manager and saying, okay, let us see where your pain points are. Let us actually cater a solution that makes sense for you. You know, with the fragmentation in the market, there are some players that they, you know, either, you know, really push you towards a smart home system, or they'll push you towards a lock system, or they'll even say, just do self-showing. You know, what's great for the Rently platform and the way we've established and set this up is we can go in, look at where you're seeing pain as a business and help you there. So, you know, you want to look at it holistically. And, you know, again, I think the fact that everybody is trending towards self-showing, that's going to stay in place. So the real question then becomes is, do you want to do self-showing, you know, with really primarily software enabling the process, and you could use a digital lockbox, which could always be, you know, recirculated among other communities or doors within the community? Or do you want to go to something more permanent, which would include a fixed lock on the door that could then be passed on to the resident? The resident can control the lock when they move in. It could be digitally rekeyed, you know, process the move out as well, and then do self-showing again. Or do you want to do a full smart home system where you know, not only can you do self-showing, but the tenant can move in, control the thermostat, control the lock, control all the elements in the home. So, you know, you got to look at it holistically. You got to look at the community. You got to look, is it an A, B, or a C property? You got to look at the locations. You got to look at the rents. And what's so nice about Rently is you could end up deciding if you have, you know, different classes of properties in your portfolio. Maybe you have an A-class property where you've done the math, you've run the numbers, and the self-showing amenity blend is really a great play. You know, you're going to capture more upside in terms of delivering that amenity value, and as you know, for the smart home, you're going to get the value in the self-show. So you could go with the higher end solution, but then you might have a B property where it doesn't necessarily make sense to just put in that full investment. The numbers don't show necessarily that that's going to generate the return, and that's fine. You could use self-showing or a lower cost lock solution. So we really pride ourselves in taking a consultative approach. We don't come into the sale saying, hey, you got to just use this, or, you know, and nothing else works. Because frankly speaking, technology is evolving really fast. we have what's available, you know, on the market today, and you know, we'll continue to have the newest and best solutions as well. But we take a very pain-oriented. We want to understand the client's pain, and we want to deliver value.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really good point, because multifamily, you have so many different, you know, business methodologies. Some are third-party managers, some are owner-operators, some are doing new builds, some are doing retros, lease-ups. You know, the variables are many. So it's important, and I'm glad you mentioned that. One thing that we kind of hear, or it's sort of a narrative, is the replacement, right? Rently will replace me. Obviously, you know, one of the things that Rently does is it helps, and I actually had an operator reach out to me recently, a very large single family operator. He's like, hey, you know, Rently's really helped us with leasing velocity during COVID. Since self-touring is so new to multifamily, one of the concerns of on-site teams is, oh, is this going to replace my job, right? How can a leasing agent, right, just putting on your leasing agent hat, how does Rently benefit them?
So, you know, in terms of the technology, it can really enable, you know, a leasing agent to do a lot more, and conceivably even add more value to an organization. I mean, I can tell you with many of the institutions that we work with, you know, I personally know many of the leasing agents that have been behind the technology, you know, facilitating the self-showings and the follow-up and the leasing activity. So, you know, if you're naturally constrained by mobility to only going out and say showing 3 properties a day, or meeting people on site for, you know, 4 or 5, but now you've got the ability to do dozens, that just drastically increases your productivity, which on the whole, on the aggregate, increases the efficiency and productivity of the whole organization. That's going to lead to more acquisitions within the portfolio, which is essentially going to be good for the employee that's driving the process. So, you know, I would look at self-showing. You know, we're going into a knowledge, you know, as we leave the industrial revolution and go into this new technological revolution that we're going into, you know, it's widely argued that it's not just, you know, we're moving into a knowledge-based economy. And so I would actually encourage those in the industry to view self-showing technology and being familiar with it and how to utilize it as one of those new technological, you know, knowledge tool sets that you want in your tool belt, right? Because not everybody has it. You know, not everybody has it. But once you understand how to, you know, maneuver that tech, I think that actually adds value within an organization. Absolutely.
That's a great point. It's one of the conversations I had with a couple operators too was people, right? People are great resources, and if we can have them do activities with higher output rather than some of the maybe monotonous tasks related to leasing, it's better people leveraging tool. So I think what you're saying is kind of on par with that.
You know, honestly, I could say, you know, running a business as well, I think the most important variable or aspect of any employer relationship, you know, is trust. And if you have that trust and you can increase the productivity and the efficiency of the organization, you know, the most valuable commodity is trust. You can always take somebody that's in leasing and then move them into, you know, an ancillary role, and, you know, grow the organization on the aggregate. But again, again, we've seen people, you know, behind the self-showing technology for years, and they become experts in it. And it gives them career value. So,
that's great. I want to switch gears a little bit. So we obviously today's an election day, which is interesting. We're still seeing how it's going to play out. Obviously, the past 9 months have been incredibly interesting. You know, I know Rently has grown a lot. Obviously, we have this huge pandemic, which has affected everyone. Now we're all working remote. You know, we have to have a plastic barrier between us to make sure that we're following COVID protocol. And you were recently interviewed by the LA Times, which was a phenomenal interview. I really, I don't know if anyone in our audience got to see it, but it was a great picture. It was a beautiful picture.
Thank you, Andre. I appreciate it.
But I know one of the things that you were talking about was, you know, challenges growing during such uncertain times, right? I was wondering for, anyone who's tuning in or who hasn't read the interview, talk about some of the things that you were mentioning, that as a CEO, seeing all these dynamics play out where you have this new vertical growing, you have employees working remotely. I think some of the days that, the day that California declared a work from home order, we were seeing just a huge surge in business and obviously everyone working remotely. It was a lot to take on. Tell me about how you as a CEO, what challenges you saw and how you personally overcame them.
Yeah, well, moving to remote work wasn't easy for me. I really did enjoy coming into the office every day. We have an office in Los Angeles, and it was a lot of, I found personal meaning going in and seeing everybody and chatting with people and dialoguing about the challenges that we have to overcome as a business. So, and especially initially was not in the work from home camp, but I could say that after we made the transition, we've retained essentially our entire employee base. I think 98% of employees that were with us pre-COVID are still with us. And, those that have moved on have gone out, other opportunities or relocated. So, it wasn't COVID related. So we're very proud of that. We've kept our employee base. In fact, our total employee count has grown under COVID. So we're extremely proud of that. But, we've also seen our trust and our, internal collaboration really increase. It's ironic, and it's something I talked about with the LA Times. Sometimes when you see somebody every day, you can have more of a superficial relationship than when you're distant, because when you're distant, you can't use the superficiality as a mask for the relationship, that you're just not seeing the person. So you have to be real, there's ups and downs to working from home and remotely. But I think as I could say in terms of having been, converted to the possibility of it being a more long-term viable option, absolutely I am. We've done everything in terms of continuing to roll out new tech, supporting our clients without skipping a beat. So I'm really grateful to our employees who have shown their dedication. And, a lot of, I think, managers and executives may not have believed that was possible without a structure, without an office, without, all the normal day-to-day routines that we're so used to, but it is. And so for that, I'm very, very grateful to our employee base for really continuing to grow Rentley by leaps and bounds during this period.
That's great.
Yeah.
And thankfully we have enough technology now. We're working remote and keeping track of what, we're all working on, and being collaborative is a lot easier than it would have been, 10 years ago. 2021 coming up. What are you most excited about? Not just in Rentley, but overall, like what, this election's hopefully going to wrap. We're going to see, hopefully, some vaccines for COVID. Tell me, what are you most excited about for 2021?
I think this, technology revolution that we're moving into, leaving the industrial revolution, is just going to continue to pick up in its acceleration. We're going to see, rapid movement towards automation tools. You get your burger now and it's made by a machine. We're going to just see so much happening in the next 5 to 10 years. And I don't think that the world is going to look like it does today in 5 or 10 years. We're just moving so fast. And from an industry perspective, it's exciting that multifamily has now, again, we're not going to look back in 2 or 3 years within the multifamily industry and say, oh, that was just a fad. Self-showing is not real. Multifamily is not going to use smart home or locks. We're staying on the old tech. We've only just hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's going to happen. Smart home and smart locks and self-showing tech is only the beginning, the very, very beginning of this smart evolution in the industry, and smart buildings and the way our lives are going to change daily. So I'm just so excited to be able to play a role as the industry is evolving with Team Rentley to make a positive change. And then, there's other stuff coming. 5G is coming to market. There's a lot of really cool things coming out, and we're going to be a part of it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most exciting things, and sometimes stressful too, is the constant change, right? Someone once asked me, what's your typical day at work? I said, I don't have a typical day at work. That's kind of why I like coming to work, because every day is different. You know, doing a fireside chat and, you know, jumping into Excel and making calls with sales is, it keeps it dynamic, it keeps it interesting. And I think that's kind of the great thing about working here. And I think a lot of employees get to kind of do a lot of different things, which keeps it exciting. So a couple fun questions before we wrap. Because
fun questions. I don't know what that means. You got me shaking the the plastic glass.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's you know, one great question that came in. This is Kara Brandon. If you weren't the CEO of Rently, what do you think you'd be doing?
Oh gosh,
I told you he hadn't seen these questions.
That's a really tough question.
Yeah. That's why we ask him. We ask the tough questions.
Do I have some options? I don't know.
No,
it's really hard. I mean, I can't, to be honest, it's very hard. I can't imagine not living the Rently life. I love what we do so much. So I don't know. I really don't know. The honest answer is I don't know. If I mean, I'd presumably be trying some other business venture, but I don't know.
Maybe you'd go back into a finance-related business. I know you like trading stocks.
I don't know.
You like finance.
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. It's actually such a good question. I don't have the answer to it because I haven't thought about it.
Okay, we'll punt it.
I mean, no, that's a real answer.
Maybe if it comes to you.
No, then yeah, it's
we've got another question for you.
I'd probably be taking care of the kids at home, but for
my
wife.
By the way, congrats on your fourth.
Yeah.
This guy has 4 kids. God bless him. So, last question.
Right.
Obviously, we're giving a PS5, PlayStation 5 at NAA for people that submit. So make sure you submit your form to win a chance at getting a PlayStation 5. I know you used to be a gamer before you had 4 kids. You still are.
I don't get to play much, but I still am. I do it vicariously through my son.
Well, in the spirit of giving away a PlayStation 5, what was your favorite PlayStation game?
Oh, that's an easy one. There was so many of them. I mean, it depends what age. I mean,
you have to pick your favorite. You're trapped on a desert island that happens to have electricity. You get the PlayStation or
how old am I? How old am I?
Your age now.
I'm at my current age.
Yes, you're at your current age.
I'm at my current age.
What is the game that you would take with you on the desert island?
All right. So, I mean, I'd probably would be Call of Duty right now.
Call of Duty.
You know, zip lining into the action.
Okay.
But I asked what age, because when I was a kid, I liked Mario, and then I went to Crash Bandicoot, you know, on the PlayStation.
Right.
And then it went to Siphon Filter and Metal Gear Solid. And, and then it evolved into, you know, Call of Duty and Battlefield. I mean, I like history, and some of the stories that are told in the games are so realistic these days. I mean, Kevin Spacey actually acted as one of the actors in the Call of Duty. So I mean, they've got big names that were brought to life.
Sure.
So it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine would be it's a toss up. It'd either be Last of Us, which was a great PlayStation 4 game. I don't know if you know that zombie apocalypse kind of deal. Or Final Fantasy 7. Just because I think I was glued to that game.
I remember playing Final Fantasy. You just keep going and going. It's like no end. The story just kept going, and you could just sit there for 24 hours. Okay, now I'm gonna walk into this little castle.
Right, which is why it's perfect for being lost on a desert island with electricity. Well, that's all I had today.
Whoever wins that PS5, that's one lucky winner. I kind of want to be the winner of that drawing, to be honest. I don't know if you can arrange that.
I can't rig the election, unfortunately. I can't rig the vote. But again, we want to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights in the history. We know you're really busy. Any final parting words for our audience or recording before we?
You know, the parting words would just be that I really appreciate all the support from the industry and self-showing smart home tech. It's what's happening, and it's only going to increase in terms of the pace of adoption. And we're really, really thankful for those that are on board, and hope to have the opportunity to continue working with more of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll be signing off.
Yep.